Welcome to the Sciata Cyber Insurance Podcast, the show dedicated to helping brokers and agents master cyber insurance. We bring you top-tier experts from across the insurance and cybersecurity industries to help you better understand today's cyber perils and protect your clients from them. Now here's your host, Kingsley Flynn.
Welcome, and thank you for joining the Sciata Cyber Insurance Podcast series. Our featured guest today is Katherine Keefe of Marsh. Welcome, Katherine.
Hello, King. Good morning.
I'm fortunate to have worked alongside Katherine during my shared tenures at Beasley Group, and I can tell you I'm very lucky to have Katherine appear as my guest today. A little bit about Katherine and her background. Katherine is a managing director at insurance brokerage Marsh, and Katherine joined Marsh in 2020 to lead the firm's cyber incident management practice. So remember the word incident because that'll come up a few times during our interview. And that team helps Marsh clients prepare and respond to cyber incidents. Prior to joining Marsh, Katherine worked on the carrier side with cyber insurance leader Beasley Group, where Katherine was the architect on building what was known as the Beasley Breach Response Services Team. And she led that team for 8 years, and that's where I got to know Katherine so well, working through some interesting cyber incidents during my time there. Katherine is a lawyer by training, and prior to her career in the cyber insurance industry, she was a partner at several law firms specializing in regulatory legal issues, including data privacy. So Katherine brings a lot of experience around data privacy from her time in the legal profession. Over the past 10 years, Katherine has managed over, wait for it, 50,000 cyber incidents and has the battle scars to prove it. Our topic today is cyber insurance and the importance of cyber incident preparation, and I referenced this earlier. You'll find Katherine's observations especially timely as there's so much information circulating around the industry on this topic. And many brokers and agents and their clients may be confused by all of it. It's a bit of a tidal wave. So the phrase information overload comes to mind when we talk about this. Katherine will take her deep experience spanning all elements of cyber risk and translate it into live examples we can understand. So let's get to it. Katherine, first of all, at a very high level, what is cyber risk insurance and why do small to mid-sized businesses need it? We'll get into looking at policy construction with one of our other guests, but we'd love to hear your sort of high-level view.
Sure, King. Cyber insurance is insurance, very specialized, that basically, at a very high level, insures exposures to data and also insures exposure to networks. Data is everywhere. It's grown to be an asset for all companies, small and large. The prevalence of cheap computing, the ability to carry data files on our phones, often containing millions of data points, the ability to relatively inexpensively store data in the cloud, which all organizations are doing, large and small, and couple all of that with the increasing awareness on the part of criminals that data, if stolen, can be monetized, either by selling data on the dark web, by locking data up and extracting an extortion or ransom payment for that data. So these are real risks to a lot of data that small businesses hold. And on top of all of that, increasingly, business policies such as CGL and property policies, those forms don't cover cyber exposures, and some of those forms explicitly exclude such exposures. So hence the emergence, the evolution of cyber risk insurance.
So very generally, when we look at cyber policies, what do they cover? And we'll be having an advanced course on cyber insurance construction on one of our other podcasts, but share with us at a high level what cyber policies generally cover.
Sure. I like to think of various sort of buckets of coverage. So if you think about what a company might need to do in the event of a suspected cyber data breach or cyber incident, they're going to incur costs associated with investigating that incident, understanding the legal ramifications of an attack, investigating it not only from a legal perspective, but from a forensics perspective. And these are costs, these out-of-pocket first-party costs that cyber policies cover. Throwing into the first-party cost side of the equation would be other incident response service expenses, such as hiring a mail house to mail data breach notification letters, hiring a call center to handle calls from affected individuals who have questions about the incident, offering credit monitoring or another form of identity monitoring program to an affected stakeholder or consumer. These are, again, first-party costs that companies may incur that are covered by most cyber insurance policies. Another sort of bucket of coverage has to do with the third-party element of a cyber claim. So those would be claims, either privacy claims, class action lawsuits, all of the large data breaches that we've read about in the paper have invariably resulted in plaintiffs' firms running to the courthouse as soon as the incident is published. So there are oftentimes lawsuits to defend and legal expenses associated with the defense of those third-party claims. That, too, is an area of coverage in most cyber policies. And then with the advent of an evolution of ransomware, most cyber policies cover aspects of business interruption loss. So to the extent that an organization suffers lost revenue from being locked up due to encrypted networks or manufacturing lines that have halted due to a cyber attack, those revenue losses are often covered as covered expenses under cyber policies. And lastly, but not least, most cyber policies subject to limits and certain retentions will cover reimbursement for extortion payments that organizations sometimes, unfortunately, find themselves in the position of having to make to restore their networks.
Very interesting. Katherine, it seems like we hear a lot about cyber attacks on big companies quite frequently. It's in the news over the years, breaches like Target, Home Depot, Marriott, Equifax, even the federal government's Office of Personnel Management have been impacted. But what about those small businesses? If they're getting attacked, why would they be targets? Yeah.
Well, I think we're at a place now, King, where no business, regardless of size, can avoid being attacked. As mentioned earlier, all businesses have data. Criminals know that. Criminals see the value in data. Sometimes, from a small business perspective, the businesses are caught in the crossfire of attackers who don't necessarily mean to target the company, but because of the type of ransomware kit they're using, because now ransomware is a service that can be purchased. You can buy a kit and launch a ransomware attack, and you can do that out of your basement. I would not suggest doing such a thing, but because of the sort of the lack of sophistication in some of these attackers, small businesses get caught up in sort of a spray and pray type of approach to a criminal cyber attack. Another way that small businesses are affected is that their vendors are subject to cyber compromises. You remember reading about the SolarWinds attack a couple of years ago, where you had a software provider serving a whole host of client customers, all sizes of companies, and the criminals know that by attacking the critical infrastructure in terms of software providers that many, many clients use, small businesses can get caught up in those attacks because it's their data at the end of the day that's compromised. I have some interesting data points.
Yeah, speaking of data, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I wanted to just share with you, and this is very focused on small business, a study done by Net Diligence last year. Net Diligence is a very well-known cyber industry organization, and they studied 7,000 cyber claims using data from over 40 cyber insurance carriers. The study very much included small business, and in fact was almost the entire focus of the study. Companies with less than $2 billion in revenue made up 98% of the claims studied. While the average revenue size of the small businesses in the study was $88 million, the study included small businesses with revenue as low as $15,000. So really, the study really ran the range of small business sizes. But some of the key findings that I think were very enlightening and sort of underscore that small business are in fact not escaping cyber attacks and need to be aware of this and do some planning around this. Criminal behavior causes most of these attacks, most of these intrusions. 96% of these small business claims studied were caused by hacking, ransomware, business email compromises, social engineering, phishing, and other criminally motivated behavior. So small business is under attack, case in point. The study also showed that no industry is spared either. While there are industry verticals that, by and large, are attacked more frequently, are more in the limelight, such as professional services firms, healthcare organizations, manufacturing, education, retail, governmental agencies, really no industry vertical is spared. Turning for a second to the cost of what these claims small businesses are incurring really
Yes, this would be very helpful.
In the study, the average cost of a small business cyber claim was $170,000. And I would just surmise that most small businesses don't have an extra $170,000 tucked away in their budget for next year or this year. Furthermore, the claims costs can really escalate from there. 150 of the small businesses studied in this study had cyber claims costs in excess of $1 million. So the hit can be quite large, and the various components of coverage that we talked about a while ago go a long way toward mitigating some of these expensive risks. One of the leading causes of loss was ransomware. In the study, the average ransom amount paid by a small business was $262,000.
Frightening.
Yeah, very frightening. And another leading cause of loss for small business, and we mentioned this earlier, is business interruption. So the loss of revenue during downtime caused by a cyber incident averaged for small businesses in the study to be $340,000. No small business can really withstand that type of loss.
So I think it's safe to say that we can agree small businesses are under attack more than ever. So let's get into a topic you bring a lot of expertise to. And so my question would be, what practical steps should companies take in terms of anticipating and preparing for cyber incidents? Because from what I'm hearing, it's just going to happen at some point. So you've got some great experience in incident prevention. So could you share with us some views on that?
Well, I'll make a couple of technically focused comments, even though, full disclosure disclaimer, I am not a technical expert. However, over the last 5 to 10 years, the cyber insurance underwriters, through the examination of cyber claims, have been able to identify with much more precision than had been the case in previous years, the types of attacks, the types of vulnerabilities, the types of threat actors, attack vectors that are happening in real time with these claims, and have been able to pull this data forward and be able to do much more focused underwriting than had been the case previously. So most cyber insurance underwriters now have a hit list of 8 to 10 to 12 security control areas, such as multi-factor authentication, privileged access management, network segmentation, and other key security controls that organizations should sharpen their pencils, talk to their IT vendors, talk to their internal IT experts, and test their posture against those key areas of focus by cyber underwriters. So that's where an outside expert, managed service provider, small businesses will often contract with to run their IT operations. Those discussions should be had around the key security controls and the kind of posture the organization is in. So that's on the technical side. On the incident anticipation and planning side, there are several things small businesses can do, including writing down an incident response plan. It doesn't have to be a 30-page document, but just a couple of pages in writing about who's responsible for investigating a potential cyber incident, what resources the company has to draw down upon, what insurance policy may be in place that should be triggered, who's going to call the broker or the agent to put that insurance carrier on notice, and what the steps are to pull the organization together to investigate and respond to the incident. I have found in my time running a breach response team on the front lines and in advising our clients at Marsh, that organizations who take just the time to develop a written plan start to develop the muscle to be able to call that plan to the forefront if an incident happens, and they're better prepared to do so. Another important feature that tests that muscle and creates muscle memory is a tabletop exercise. So having a facilitated conversation in a safe space in your conference room, running a hypothetical about how you would deploy the plan. On a Friday afternoon, someone in your organization sees the blue screen of death on their computer monitor with a note purporting to be a ransomware attack. What do you do? Who do you call? Well, who are your resources? How quickly, if this is a network encryption, can the network be restored? So there are some key points to test. The tabletop exercises go a long way if run periodically to make sure that an organization is in the best spot to respond.
So keyword here, prepare, prepare, prepare. So even small businesses that may not have a sophisticated risk management insurance program for their other lines of coverage really need to look at this incident response plan. It's something that they really need to focus on and not simply rely on, well, I have a policy in place, I'm fine, right? Is that a safe comment?
I think that's a very safe comment. And recognizing that a lot of small organizations don't have huge budgets for very robust risk management programs or targeted approach to cyber preparation, that is where a cyber policy can really pay dividends. Because not only, as we talked about, the types of resources that organizations need to help them respond to an incident, be they lawyers, forensics firms, other forms of incident response providers, the cyber carriers have organized those in a way that are very quickly deployed at the time of an incident, but that ahead of an incident, the policyholder can talk to their carrier about those resources and become familiar with how the policy works and how the organization, the policyholder, can avail themselves of those incident response services when the time comes. The other side to the coin is the risk management services themselves that cyber carriers will offer. Sometimes cyber carriers will either discount or provide as part of the premium a tabletop exercise, or will make available to policyholders an incident response template document that a policyholder can take and customize for their own environment. Your cyber broker should also be able to provide you with risk management approaches, tools, and resources. We spend a lot of time with our clients at Marsh preparing organizations with information on who are the best vendors, how to keep incident response plans refreshed and tested. So there are various avenues of resources that small businesses can avail themselves of.
Great to know that brokers, agents, and clients can reach out to some of these resources because that will help them a lot. Sadly, the sun is setting over the horizon on our podcast for today, but I want to thank you so much, Katherine, for joining me. Great to see you again, and you bring just terrific experience that I know brokers, agents, and clients will appreciate. So thank you.
Thank you, King. It was great to be with you and be part of the SIATA podcast series. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the SIATA Cyber Insurance Podcast. Join us next time for more insights that help you understand and place cyber risk better. If you want to grow your cyber book without the heavy lifting, you need SIATA. SIATA is the online marketplace where you quickly quote and bind cyber from leading markets, all on an easy-to-use digital platform. Go to SIATA.com to learn more. That's SAYATA.com.